Will the Yazoo Pump Project affect the Mississippi Delta smelt fish?
That's my sardine eating, man. You can't mess with that.
Good to be with you this morning, Gallo Radio Show, as we roll into the 8 o'clock hour. A cold day across the state of Mississippi. Don't forget to make sure that you take care of your pets. You got dogs and cats and whatever else. Make sure that they are taken care of and they've got a warm spot. It's going to take a long time for it to warm up today. All right. Next guest joins us now, and boy, you want to talk about a topic that has had twists and turns and ups and downs and excitement and disappointment. You're talking about the Yazoo Pump Project. Peter Nimrod joins us, Chief Engineer at the Mississippi Levee Board. Peter, good morning. Thanks so much for your time.
Good morning.
It feels as if there is good news in the pump project story, but it's not the first time that it feels like there has been good news. Why should now be different?
You're exactly right. This has been a project that's had its up and downs over the last 85 years.
Not the last 8 years, not the last 5 years, the last 85 years.
Yes, yeah. Authorized in 1941, this project's had a lot of good spots and bad spots and twists and turns and political moves, and it's been exciting and disappointing and everything. But right now, we are really excited. The difference here, 80-something years into this project, is all the agencies, all the federal agencies came together to work on this project. So it wasn't just the Corps of Engineers, presenting a plan, and then other agencies like the Fish and Wildlife Service and EPA saying, no, you would have done this instead. It made it better, blah, blah, blah. This time, they locked them in a room and basically said, let's come up with a project that'll work for everybody. And so everybody had a seat at the table, and they came up with a project that everyone is happy with, and that's amazing. So now you have the Corps, the Fish and Wildlife Service, and the EPA all part of the plan and all happy with it. And that's what makes this project way different than everything that's been presented in the past.
So I'm going to ask you to do something that is difficult to do. Can you give me a 60-second summary of 85 years of history and why this is so significant? I know that most people that listen to SuperTalk Mississippi on a regular basis and have for a long time have some familiarity with the whole pump project saga. But if you had to kind of sum it up in just a minute or so, what would you tell somebody that had never heard of this?
Ooh, that's a tough question. This project did start in 1941 because of a tweak to the Mississippi River and Tributaries Project, where there was going to be a floodway that was going to take water out of the Mississippi River above Greenville, Mississippi, and put it through the states of Arkansas and Louisiana. Well, in 1941, Arkansas and Louisiana said, let's not have that floodway anymore. And when they did that, it put way more water on the Mississippi South Delta, and that's when this project was authorized with backwater levees and drainage structures and pumps. And then we thought we were building the project in 1986, and then a political move came in and basically stopped it. Then we thought we were moving again in 2007, and then the EPA stepped in and said that project won't work for us. Then we thought we were moved again in 2019 with this project, and then it got stopped again in 2021. And now we're here today, 2025, and what you've got is everybody on the same page for a change, and we're moving forward with a project that will work for everybody and give some serious flood protection for the Mississippi South Delta, not only for the people in the land and the ag land, but obviously the environment and the wildlife and the trees in the area.
So the starts and stops, at least some of the time, have been political in nature, and some of them have had to do with different groups having either different agendas or different opinions about what is best for that area. Was the big flood from, 5-ish years ago, was that the tipping point in all of this when you looked at nearly $1 billion in damage and, 500,000 acres that were flooded, significantly flooded? Was that the point where everybody kind of got somewhat on the same page?
No doubt about it. It took a disaster to make people understand what the problem is. And so in 2019, we did have 548,000 acres underwater. 686 homes got flooded. 3 highways were underwater. And then the people, this flood lasted not a day or two. It lasted 7 months. And so the people saw the devastation to the wildlife, and they realized that wildlife can't live in 10 feet of water for 7 months. And it just was an awful, horrible event. Nobody planted a crop that year at all on 250,000 acres. It was just a complete disaster, ruining the economy, ruining the environment. And that's when people really woke up and said, okay, I get it now, okay? The sad thing is 2019 was really about a 35 to 50-year flood, so it's not even a 100-year flood. So there's lots worse floods out there that are coming. That's why we need the protection. So if it was that bad in 2019, it's going to be worse with a bigger flood by far.
So the reason that we're talking about this now, as the conversation has come and gone and come and gone, the governor posted on X last week that we took another huge step forward in the fight to finish the pumps. The Army Corps of Engineers signed a record of decision clearing the way for the construction.
That's correct. So what has happened, when we talked last in the 1st of December, the Corps had just gone through a year-and-a-half process, and they finalized their environmental impact statement for the project. And then there were a lot of things that needed to happen from there to where we're at today. That's where the partners came into play. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service had to look at the endangered species with the Corps and concur that this project wasn't going to, ruin those endangered species. They went through formal consultation. The Fish and Wildlife Service with the Corps went through formal consultation on the endangered pondberry plant in the area, and they concurred with the Corps this wasn't going to ruin the species at all. So that was big stuff. The Fish and Wildlife Service also did their final Fish and Wildlife Coordination Act report, and during that process, they had made a whole lot of recommendations to the Corps, and the Corps accepted them and incorporated them into the plan. And when they did that lock, Fish and Wildlife Service said, absolutely, let's move forward with this project, gave a good rating on that. And then finally, two more things. The Corps, the EPA, and the Fish and Wildlife Service signed all these memorandums of understanding on different things like pump operation and how the compensatory mitigation was going to be acquired, and then monitoring the project after it's built and adaptive management so they could tweak it down the road to make it even better. All those MOAs were signed in November as well. And then finally, the big thing was everyone thought this project's still subject to the 2008 EPA veto for the pumps. Well, the EPA officially came out on January 8th, wrote a letter to the Corps, said, hey, we've reviewed everything and we've concluded this new project is not subject to that 2008 veto, and you can move forward. And they really praised the process, the collaborative process, and they praised that this project was going to be significant flood risk reduction, and also the mitigation was going to, capture all the losses and make it work. So all that came together for the Corps to sign this record of decision January 16th. And in that record of decision, when you do this, the Corps is basically saying, we have completed all of the environmental documentation. We have complied with all the NEPA policy, the NEPA Act, and we are ready to move forward with preliminary engineering construction so we can move towards design. So that was a huge deal because a lot of things had to happen to get us to that point.
Peter Nimrod is chief engineer with the Mississippi Levee Board. Has the financing been approved? Is the money there to move forward with the project and actually begin construction?
That's an awesome question as well. So, no. The answer is no at the moment. There is $32 million in a bill, an appropriations bill, to get this project jump-started on preliminary engineering and design, and also the start of buying the compensatory mitigation land. And that money is in the bill, and as soon as Congress takes it up for this FY25 appropriation bill, which hopefully will be passed here in the next month or two, that money should be in there, and the Corps can start right away when it gets the money. So there's a whole lot of things to do. When they get the money, they'll start working on that engineering design to construct the project. They'll start working on acquiring mitigation land. Of course, they're working with Ducks Unlimited, the Nature Conservancy, Delta Wildlife, and the Corps are all working together on acquiring this compensatory mitigation land, and the Ducks Unlimited has really stepped up, and they're willing to develop this land and make it work in the future to get all the gains that they need for the environmental losses that were made from the project. So there's tons of stuff to be done, and this will take a few years to get to a point where we can actually start moving dirt, because one of the things they agreed upon was we cannot start construction until all the mitigation land is acquired, that's 6,125 acres, and developed. So that's where
Peter,
really Ducks Unlimited in Loop program is going to work.
Peter, can you hang with me through the break and us talk just for a few more minutes on the other side?
Yes, sir.
Peter Nimrod, Chief Engineer, Mississippi Levee Board. We will continue this fascinating conversation in just a couple of minutes. This is the Gallo Radio Show on SuperTalk, Mississippi. Gallo Show rolls on this Wednesday morning, a cold day, frigid day across the Magnolia State. Peter Nimrod is our guest. He is Chief Engineer with the Mississippi Levee Board. We're talking about the Yazoo Pump Project and progress that is being made in this 85-year-old saga going back to 1941. And, Peter, the question that I asked you before the break was about money, and you talked about, appropriation being there for the engineering study and the acquisition of the 6,000-plus acres, and all of that has to happen before construction can actually begin. Let's paint a rosy scenario just for a second. Let's say that there are no more hiccups, which I know after 8 decades is that may be pie in the sky thinking. But let's just say that this moves forward as the elements of the project are completed. When might pumps actually be in place and functioning, the pumps that ultimately can hopefully keep from having flooding in the future in the South Delta?
Yeah, absolutely. So it'll be a while because it's probably going to take about 3 years to do all this preliminary stuff, plus all the mitigation land acquired plus all the development of that mitigation land. So in about 3 years, first you have to have money. So here it is, January. So let's say we don't really start rolling until July of this year of 2025. So really we're looking at possibly mid-2028 where construction can actually begin. And then you're talking about a pretty mammoth project, a huge civil works project here, big pumps and all kinds of great things going on with that. And it's probably going to take 4 years to get it built. So we're really talking, 7 years down the line. So I'm thinking sometime in mid-2032, and I know it's a long way away, but when you live in harm's way, like everyone does in the Mississippi South Delta, they see nothing. There's this darkness. If with this project in place and with it moving forward, there is light at the end of the tunnel. They know the end is coming. They know the protection is coming. That's what they need. So yeah, it takes a while. It's going to take probably 7 years to get to the point where we can actually cut the pump on. But
and that's assuming nobody changes their mind between now and then.
That is correct. We don't anticipate that at all. But we obviously know that we do have the environmentalists out there and the national environmentalists out there that have always opposed the project. And we know they're probably going to sue, and that's what they do. So we know we'll probably end up in some lawsuits, but it'll be them against the entire federal government and the Mississippi Levee Board. It's going to be just those environmentalists who live 1,000 miles away taking shots at this project, and they're going to be fighting not only the Corps, but they're going to be fighting the EPA and the Fish and Wildlife Service who want this project. And so anyway, it's going to be a different story than in the past. And unfortunately, it's really unfortunate. I really wish they would come. I really wish they'd come to look at this area. I wish they'd come during some of the flood events to see the devastation to the environment, to the wildlife. Had they come, they would be completely for this project. But we know what they're doing, and we know they don't want to see that. And so that's why would they continue to fight this project, is because they don't want to know the truth. And anyway, that's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
So you mentioned the $32 million for the engineering study and the beginning of the acquisition of the land. What about the construction itself? Like the actual construction, implementation of the pumps, how big a price tag are we talking about for the whole thing?
I have not seen one. I have not seen a price tag on this project. It's one of those things where, you were right. This was $1 billion flood event in 2019. You can see the damages. Hey, if you got $1 billion project, whatever it is, to prevent that from happening again, which is the 35 to 50 year flood that's going to happen a lot, it's worth it. Also, really the reason this kind of turned in the last administration was the environmental justice aspect of this. And so, this is a minority population. It's an impoverished population. 70% of this population in the Mississippi South Delta is minority, and 32% live below the poverty line. And that's one of their agendas, was to make sure that we're going to protect the minority and impoverished people. And this is exactly what this is. This is an environmental justice project designed to protect people and minorities and impoverished people. So you can't put a price on that. So anyway, the 2019 backwater flood was such a devastation, $1 billion in damages. Everyone realizes, hey, let's get this fixed now before we do this again and again and again and keep having to bail this place out.
I mean, could it be $1 billion project?
Possibly. I really don't know. But, you're talking about a 25,000 cubic feet per second pump. That's a big pump. You're talking about this 6,000 acres of compensatory mitigation, all these extra features we're putting in place. Possibly.
Yeah. But so the 6,000 acres, is that privately owned land where those landowners will have to sell for?
Okay, so yeah, 6,000. The land they're going after will be like farmland today. It's low-lying farmland, land that probably won't be protected by the pump, since the pump's not turning on until 90 feet. And so you're trying to get the land that's not going to be protected. That's in ag land today. It will not be forced on them. It's strictly volunteer. If you don't want to sell your land or get an easement on it, you don't have to. They're just looking for the people that actually want that, if they want to sell it, if they want to put an easement on it, whatever the case may be, so they can develop it into mitigation land. The only trick here is you just cannot put it back into ag land. And since you're going up after this low-lying land, it really wasn't going to be protected by the pump anyway. Because the pump on elevation 90 feet, where we're at today during the crop season with this new plan, there's still 154,000 acres underwater at 90 feet. Only about 12,000 acres of ag land today. So, we'll be looking for that 12,000 acres to get that 6,000 acres as mitigation land.
Whew. A lot of moving parts.
Right.
A lot of moving parts. Peter, I appreciate your time this morning. It's a fascinating conversation. I think I hear some optimism in your voice, maybe more so than in years past, and appreciate you kind of giving us an update on where this is here in early 2025.
Absolutely. Let's touch base again. I'll let you know how we're moving along, and I really appreciate this opportunity. And we are stoked about this. This is good. This is where we need to be, and we're on the right path, and we're looking forward to it.
Peter Nimrod, Chief Engineer with the Mississippi Levee Board. I hope you are still in that role to see this project all the way through to its completion. Thanks so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Gallo Radio Show, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Whew. The Yazoo Pump Project is, I said yesterday, I don't even remember who we were talking with, the whole all politics is local. And if you live in the South Delta, whether you're one of those people that is, like Peter was talking about, below the poverty line, or you are a farmer, or you've got hunting land that is in this area that has been flooded. I've got a buddy that's got a really nice property in southwest Mississippi. And a couple of years ago, I guess it's been 4 or 5 years ago, 90% of his property was underwater for months.
We were underwater for 8 months.
Yeah.
Up to the base of the cabin, which is about 8 feet, 9 feet.
Yeah.
4 months, months and months.
Yeah.
And, we've never seen anything like that since 1935, since we've been down there. Mm-hmm. And, in that area, I was talking.
And yet, as Peter said, that wasn't even a 100-year flood.
No, I mean, it was close, but, I mean, I talked to him just briefly in the break, and it's just, it's a Queen Low. It's like a dish, and it holds a lot of water. Great farmland, though. Not a lot of people live there.
Hard to farm it if it's underwater, though.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you get a lot of backwater from the Yazoo. There's a lot of channels and canals and things, but when the water gets up and it starts backing up in the Mississippi, it just spills out as far as it can going north. So a lot of the folks are finish the pumps. That was something we saw a lot of signs on the side of the road and stuff. They'll be coming back, and a lot of folks there truly believe in that project and been waiting a long time.
A really, really long time. And I think there's some perspective there that you hear from Peter when he says light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, in a best-case scenario where 7 years from now you get to a completion of this project and the pumps become active, but 7 years when you're talking about nearly 85 years of waiting and hoping and seeing floods come and go and having disasters along the way, I guess that's a reasonable amount of time, and it's a massive project. Yeah, and the champion. And historically, the Army Corps of Engineers, and this is not a knock on them, they just don't move at a super fast pace. No, even when funding is approved, their projects are not fast projects. Mm-hmm. It's going to take a while.
We had a champion of the cause too, in Hank Birding, and he was a great man. And I know he's up in heaven now with Paul right by his side. They're going, man, they're actually going to get this done. It looks like.
Here is hoping. Mo says the last 100-year flood was in 1927. We are moving close to due date for another. Maybe it can be like a 130-year flood instead of a 100-year flood, or a 110-year flood, Mo, so we can get this done. We'll be back.